welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel, It's a Horse Thing. If you're new here, hi, I'm Kara. Today, I am showing you guys the entire process video for Aurora. If you don't know who Aurora is, she is pretty much my NaMoPaiMo entry for 2025. If you don't know what NaMoPaiMo is, pretty much it stands for National Model Painting Month. There is a whole group on Facebook, I am in it. The goal is to start and finish painting a model in the month of February. I've had this model sitting on my shelf for a little while now. My original model was Athenian Lady, so she was the Breyer Fest 2024 celebration model, so I just had one lying around. I knew pretty early on I was going to paint her. One of my models was very clearly LSQ and the other one was most definitely not. So starting back in November, I actually decided I was going to go ahead and start prepping her. So obviously the dreaded stage of sanding for hours was what was to come first. So I went ahead and sanded everything. Pretty much all of her markings, because Breyer's markings are uneven, so you have to sand all the edges down, and then any other little imperfections, also taking off that Breyer logo. Once I felt like sanding was decently sufficient, I went ahead and started adding veins. The only horse I've ever actually done this to was Dakota, and I wasn't super thrilled with him, so I really wanted to try and focus a little bit more on her, so I pulled up some reference photos, try and get a better idea of what I was doing. And not gonna lie, they actually didn't turn out half bad. After this, I went ahead and drilled a hole underneath her stomach. So if you don't collect Breyer and you're on my channel, because you are a Schleich collector, Breyers are hollow, so usually they have an air hole on the side of their mouth to prevent, inflating isn't the best word, but the only word that's coming to mind right now. For realism purposes, I usually cover that up with some sort of epoxy or milliput. Not exactly sure why I did this in this order, but I guess I went ahead and also added veins in the face after I drilled the hole. Also something I'm not super comfortable with, but I was pretty happy with the result. And then just to make sure I get all the dust off before the first primer layer, because you do not need to be priming dust into the coat. And then also you want to make sure that any of your hand oils, same rules as pastels pretty much, you don't want to be touching the horse too much before you prime it, just because certain primers react to that really weird. So just to make sure everything's clear, bathed her really good with warm water and soap. And just put her off to the side to air dry. I don't like to dust with any paper towels or anything. Then once she was dry, I let her dry overnight. I went ahead and sprayed her very lightly. I believe I sprayed her 2 or 3 times. You don't want to spray the primer on too thick, just to see if there are any flaws that I need to go back and fix. So after the primer layer, there were a few things that just annoyed me. So I added some more veins to her face. I didn't feel like they were prominent enough. And then I also went ahead and sculpted part of her mane. I know that Breyer does it so it's tack friendly, but I wanted my mane to be complete all the way across, so I went ahead and sculpted that in as well. Then finally I got to airbrush her, and this was the first time I was using my Iwata HPCS that I got from Christmas, so needless to say, I was definitely a little stressed, but I was very happy with how things went. It was definitely a huge upgrade from my posh airbrush that I was borrowing from my dad. I went ahead and went in very carefully and not pulling all the way back on the trigger, but just went through and gave her kind of a light dusting almost of yellow palomino color all over her body, and then working back, pulling the trigger back even more a little bit, and going in and detailing part of her muscles. I wanted to make sure I wasn't going too dark, as I knew when I went and added dapples onto her later with pastels that things were going to get a lot darker. Therefore, I try to keep things very minimal. I am somebody who loves darker horses and shading, so it was extremely hard for me to have to keep telling myself, listen, just leave her. And eventually I did, and was very happy with how the airbrushing stage came out. Then after leaving her to dry for about 24 hours, I went outside and went ahead and gave her a spray with my Rust-Oleum Matte Clear Sealant. I am not wearing a mask or gloves in this photo. I have no idea what I was thinking. Usually I do, so please don't be like me in this clip. This is not what I normally do. Just gave her a thin sealant before I moved on to pastels to make sure it was not bumpy across the top, as that would cause graininess. Then, what was one of the most nerve-wracking parts of this whole project was the pasteling. The way I wanted to go about this was very different from what I would normally do. If there was anything I learned from this project, it is that using an airbrush and pastels is the way to go. Using just pastels or just an airbrush, I don't feel like it's nearly the best quality as you could with both. So I used various shades of pastel. I used orange shade, burnt sienna, and burnt sienna shade, and it probably took me about 5 layers. So what I would do is I would shade the horse like I normally would, and then I went in with a Faber-Castell eraser pencil, and any area where there was a dapple, I would just erase the pastel away. This was extremely time consuming, but it was the best way I have found to do dapples, best dapple technique I have found. Overall, just amazing. I did not have a whole lot of graininess, which was awesome. It was overall just as frustrating as it was a very pleasant experience. I also try to not keep them too uniform, as dapples aren't perfect, so you don't want your model to look perfect. Not every dapple is in the exact shape of a circle or a star, so I tried to incorporate that best as I could onto my model. Then I had gone ahead off camera and went ahead and pretty much mapped her markings with a white charcoal pencil, because for whatever reason this day I was feeling extremely frustrated after her other side of dapple. She was darker than I wanted her to be. I was very frustrated with her coat color overall. So I had posted on the NaMoPaiMo group where I said I was considering stripping her, and a lot of people told me not to and to see her through. Markings are my favorite part of a horse. I knew if I went ahead and mapped them, that would be what got me to continue working on her the next day. I did not want to go to bed that night wondering if I was actually going to finish her. So I went ahead and did this. I laid it out with the charcoal pencil, and then I went in and just started getting I started getting a few layers of white onto her with Joe Sandra white acrylic mixed in with some folk art blending gel. This blending gel, guys, is amazing. I love it so much. It has made markings so much better. So then I got this really dumb idea. Where this came from, I'm not entirely sure. But I woke up one morning while I was working on her, and I just went to school and sat down and went, how cool would it be to cut off her tail after the horse is half painted? Just rip that thing off with a Dremel and hopefully not screw up the paint job and just give her a new tail. Stupid, I know. These were all of my inspiration pictures, actually. I really wanted something that was like very cute and small but had like a little bit of braid to it. I wanted something that I could incorporate a bow in. I just felt like at the time she wasn't really giving me princess. I definitely wanted Aurora to feel like a princess name, and it did not feel like a princess name with her current paint job. I felt like she needed something special. So after finally deciding out of nowhere I'm gonna try and cut this horse's tail off, I went home and I ended up covering her in like a plastic Walmart bag. That was the best idea I had. I still don't know if that was the best idea. So I covered her with the bag and put like rubber bands and tape all over her and cut a hole so the tail could fit through. And my hope was this would keep any dust from the Dremel flying off on her, and then just hope I would be precise enough with my Dremel to not like bash the side of her body. So after like sitting here panicking for a good like 30 minutes, I finally got the Dremel out and I just started dremeling away at the sides. Just Dremel. Cut that thing off. Why am I doing this? Okay. We're gonna take her stuff off. Okay. Okay. That actually doesn't look half bad for what I wanted it to be. I mean, overall, I was decently satisfied, so there's that. Not only was it a bad idea to try and take her tail off while painted, but it was also a bad idea because I am not a sculptor. For whatever reason, I thought I could sculpt a braid. So I ended up trying to make like these V shapes that wrapped around the side of her tail from my inspiration photos and used, I don't even remember what it is. It's some dental tool that I learned from DJB, so I'm not entirely sure what it is, but I ended up using that and a whole bunch of water with my Milliput and just going in and sculpting away. After I did that with her tail, I gave it a base coat, as you can see in this area here. And then I went ahead and started painting the eyes. So I mixed this very light pink, fleshy toned color and put that in the front corner of the eye. I don't know technical eye terms, so please bear with me. And then white in like majority of the eye, the pink is just in the little corner. And then you do a black circle that covers most of that white that we just did. It depends on where the horse is looking. And then you go in and put brown over it, and then another lighter brown color and another lighter brown color to like try and give it more depth and detail. And then one little thing that I really have enjoyed doing is I add in some like little gold highlights in the corners of the eye where it would normally shine. And then you go ahead and add in the black pupil on top of that, making sure that it is like kind of an oval, a squished oval parallel to the ground. And that is how I do my eyes. Then of course, just back to markings, a lot of herring details. I would use my nail art brush, which by the way is amazing for herring, and go around the edges, and then I would go in with my normal paintbrush and just go back over those edges just to make sure that they're nice and crisp. And then one of my favorite little details, I took my pink pastel and just put that on her snip. And then this was my first time trying like really detailed hooves. You're gonna see me patting in like these stripings here. I did not really know what I was doing. The best technique I found was to almost draw on the stripes and then treat it like herring and giving in stripes on those stripes, if that makes sense. And there was a lot of back and forth and reworking on this. This took me quite a little bit of time. I did get a reference photo from one of my lovely friends here on YouTube, so thank you so much. You know who you are if you sent me that photo. That was super helpful for me. And this was honestly just kind of one of those really relaxing processes, other than the fact that I had to do this literally 4 times. Other than that, it was fun. So Past Me didn't record anything on the mane and tail, which I find is really odd. This is one of my favorite parts. It used to really intimidate me, but I feel like I've gotten a lot better at it. So pretty much I have 3 different shades. I have the base color, your medium color pretty much, and then I was using this almost white color for the highlights, and then this kind of darker palomino color for the shading. And I would take my nail art brush and go in all the little crevices of the herring details and put that dark yellow palomino shading color in there, and then I would go back over the highlights, the raised areas, with that almost white color. And I also did that on the braid as well. I also did not see that I really filmed anything about the braid, so I ended up braiding on a live stream, just this little tiny braid with embroidery floss, and I went ahead and like pretty much just super glued that to the back of the tail, and then put a whole bunch of wood glue and water and glue, just a whole bunch of glues pretty much, and put that over it and just kept painting over it and over it and over it until it was almost sculpted, because I did not want to sculpt a braid. I was not confident enough in my ability, so I kind of took the cheap way out, and hey, it actually turned out pretty good. I was pleasantly surprised with how the braid turned out. Then taking my Deco Color liquid gold pen, I went ahead and did my signature on the bottom of her stomach. Then I went outside and gave her a final suit with my Rust-Oleum 2x matte clear. Again, not wearing a mask here, don't be like me. I am wearing a glove though. And one of my first time using UV resin. This UV light is so bright. I decided, after watching a little bit of Daisy Stalls, I wanted to go in and try UV resin on the eyes. So one thing I don't like about my gloss varnish is I don't feel like it's very 3D. And I've seen people who've used UV resin on the eyes, and I really wanted to try it just to see how it would go. I wanted something that was more 3D and more pronounced. I really liked it. I felt like it was a little bit shinier. I felt like it was giving the effect I hoped for, which was awesome. And I also went in and gave her horseshoes on all of her hooves. Then it was time to attach the bow. I had made this really horrible bow, so my mom ended up making one for me. Thank you, Mom. Very, very cute. So I had at first asked some people if I wanted it to wrap around the tail or if they thought that the bow was more realistic, and I posted about it and everybody said just putting the bow on was the most realistic option. So I just went ahead, I cut down the ends of the bow and then just super glued it on. When I cut down the ends of the bow, I also super glued them to the tail just for whatever reason. If I'm traveling with her to get pictures or to a show or anything, I wouldn't need to worry about messing the bow up. Then I went in with my Liquitex gloss varnish and glossed her nostrils as well as her hooves, because I feel like she kind of looked like a show horse in a way, so I felt like glossing her hooves was pretty accurate. And finally, 22 hours and 20 minutes of work time later, Aurora is finished. I am so absolutely amazed at myself that I was able to create something like this. Is she 100% realistic? No, but I love the drastic herring details I did on her markings, even if it's not realistic. I absolutely love the bow. I love her coat. There is so much about her that is just absolutely perfect. I love me a good dappled Tobiano. And the only thing that matters is that I can look at her and go, wow, I made that. And that is the only thing that matters to me. I am so proud of her. A lot of people have asked me my feelings between her and Jupiter, and the only thing that I can say between her and Jupiter is that I feel like their markings are very similar. Other than that, she has better eyes. She has a much better mane and tail. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know how to do a mane and tail when I did Jupiter. Her hooves are so much better. Her shading is so much better than his. I did hair by hair on her muzzle. There is just so many things that easily put her over the top for me, and I am so glad to have this horse done and have participated in my first NaMoPaiMo. Now, if you are new to my channel, thank you so much for being here and sticking around to the end. If you have not already, make sure you click that like button down below to show me that you enjoy this kind of video and would like to see more videos or tutorials like this. Feel free to leave any video suggestions down in the comments and consider subbing as well. I would greatly appreciate it. I do sell custom models on my Etsy, and I do also take commission, so I will leave the link down below in the description for anybody who is interested. Other than that, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next video or the next live stream, whichever video comes first. Goodbye, everybody.